Prologue, The Bolt and the Awakening. Before the shadow on the mat, before the national championship, and long before the slow, painful alchemy of betrayal, there was only a quiet boy crossing a crowded campus. It was early fall, that brief, golden interval when the world seems to hold its breath before surrendering to winter. The air carried a crisp clarity, laced with the scent of crushed leaves, distant wood smoke, and damp earth. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through the heavy canopy of ancient oaks in thick amber beams, catching dust motes as they drifted lazily in the wind. Around him surged the restless current of student life, boots striking stone pathways, the low murmur of overlapping conversations, the distant toll of the bell tower. It was a season of raw potential, the exhilarating, unsettling friction of being young and entirely unwritten. Moving quietly through it all was Gideon Rivers. He was invisible by design. His body held a dense, unrefined strength, bone and muscle shaped by years of quiet labor, but he had no arena in which to spend it. He drifted through the academic world like an outsider, unaware that his life was waiting just beyond the next corner. And then it happened. Old men, those who have lived long enough to separate sentiment from truth, have a name for it: the bolt. It is rare, instantaneous, a single, concussive moment when a man sees a woman and feels as though he has been struck by lightning. It is not attraction, it is disruption. The lungs empty, the ground shifts. Time fractures cleanly into two eras, everything before her and everything after. For Gideon, the bolt struck near the monolithic pillars of the humanities building. Her name was Maya Eden. She stood in a pool of autumn light, looking slightly lost, her presence at once gentle and arresting. Her slight frame seemed almost delicate against the imposing stone architecture. Yet there was something about her, something quietly radiant, that commanded attention. Gideon felt it immediately, an instinct deep and unreasoned. He moved toward her. As he stepped closer, the world sharpened. The faint scent of her warm vanilla touched with rain and paper reached him first. Then the details resolved, the smoothness of her skin, the quick flash of her teeth as she bit her lip, the subtle tension in her posture. When she looked up, he faltered. Her eyes held an impossible blend of green and hazel, like sunlight filtering through a forest canopy. For a moment, he lost his footing, not physically, but somewhere deeper, less stable. She explained, somewhat nervously, that she was searching for a lecture hall. Gideon didn't recognize the building she named. That didn't matter. "I can help you find it," he said. He couldn't have walked away if he tried. They moved together through the winding, wood-paneled corridors, the silence between them charged and fragile. They reached the lecture hall just as the heavy oak doors were closing. Philosophy 101. Professor Elias Thorne. Gideon opened the door, intending only to let her slip inside before disappearing back into the afternoon. But the moment she crossed the threshold, the lecture stopped. Thorne's gaze snapped to the doorway. At the front of the room, leaning against the podium, graduate assistant Baxter Pierce followed that gaze, not to Gideon, but to Maya. His expression lingered, calculating, appraising. It was subtle but unmistakable, the first shadow of something darker to come. Thorne, assuming Gideon was another careless student, pointed a piece of chalk at him like a weapon. "Don't stand there blocking the draft," he snapped. "Sit down and try to keep up." Gideon hesitated only a moment. Unwilling to cause a scene, he stepped inside and made his way down the tiered seating, settling awkwardly into a desk in the back row. A few rows ahead, Maya glanced back. She smiled, small, apologetic, disarming. The bolt struck again. At the front of the room, Thorne resumed, pacing with restless intensity as he dismantled the foundations of Western philosophy. He turned sharply and wrote across the board in jagged strokes. "Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am." Descartes claims that thought is the foundation of existence, Thorne said, scanning the room. That consciousness proves reality. Who agrees? Silence. Gideon stared at the words. His thoughts were not abstract. They were immediate, physical. He felt the weight of his body, the grounding certainty of his own existence, the lingering presence of the girl seated ahead of him. Before he could reconsider, he raised his hand. Thorne stopped. "Yes," he said, irritation edged with curiosity. "You disagree with Descartes." Gideon's voice, when it came, was steady. "With respect, sir, he has it backward." A pause. "Backward. Thinking doesn't prove anything," Gideon said. "It's just something a being does. You have to exist before you can think." The chalk snapped in Thorne's hand. The room fell into complete silence. For a long moment, Thorne said nothing. For the first time in decades, he hesitated, not for effect, but because he had no immediate response. Then the bell rang. "Stay," Thorne said, pointing at Gideon. The room emptied. Thorne studied him with a new intensity. "Where did you study?" he asked. "What's your background?" Gideon shifted slightly. "I'm not in this class, sir. I'm studying agricultural economics." Thorne exhaled sharply. "Good God, then you should be studying philosophy immediately." He gestured toward Baxter. "He'll help you." Gideon nodded politely, but his attention had already drifted. He looked toward the back of the room. Empty. A flicker of panic rose in him. He excused himself quickly and took the steps 2 at a time, pushing through the doors into the hallway. He scanned the crowd, and then stopped. She was there, leaning against the stone wall, waiting. When she saw him, she smiled, easy, unguarded, luminous. She stepped closer. "Well," she said, tilting her head, "2 things. First, what's your name?" A small pause. "And second, what does a girl have to do to buy you a burger?" Gideon felt something settle into place, something undeniable, immovable. He smiled. And in that moment, standing in the soft light of an autumn afternoon, he understood. Whatever this was, it had already. The heart knows reason, which reason does not know.